Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Judge Janine Pirro, Kevin Walling, Dana Perino, and a pensive Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Donald Trump making his triumphant return to Washington to unite the Republican Party. And it was, as the former president would say, a total love fest. Trump getting a rock star reception from congressional Republicans. At one point, House GOP members started singing happy birthday to him. Why don't we all happy? And Senate Republicans gave him a cake. Trump turns 78 tomorrow. The former president was on a mission to get everybody on board to win big this November and save America from the Biden catastrophe. Sources telling Fox News what went down in the closed-door GOP meeting. Trump ripping the Biden DOJ as dirty, no-good bastards over their lawfare campaign against him. He also called Joe Biden a dope. And later on, Trump was touting the Republican unity.
We have great unity. We have great common sense. A lot of very smart people in this room and a lot of people that love our country. We're a nation that's in decline. We're a declining nation. We're a nation that is being laughed at all over the world. We have a leader that's being laughed at all over the world. And we're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around fast. We have to get elected. We have to take this beautiful place and we have to make it really something very special. Again, right now it's not special. This is an outstanding group of people. I'm with them 1,000%. They're with me 1,000%. We agree just about on everything, and if there isn't, we work it out.
But Democrats and the media can't stand the sight of a unified Republican Party. So they were ramping up the Trump fear factor.
Donald Trump and his Republican sycophants will be talking about tax breaks for the very rich, cuts to the middle class, and packing our courts with more radical judges. If that's unity, the American people sure as heck don't want it.
I just get sick thinking about my Republican colleagues in the Senate, watching them get behind this candidate that they know to be a danger to American democracy.
Beyond the party is the voters that are subscribing to it. That keeps me up at night.
Guilty, 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 guilty.
Janine, pretty significant. Donald Trump going to D.C., seeing all the House Republicans and all of the Senate Republicans, who some of them might not have had always the greatest relationship with, fully united around the former president. What does that mean?
Specifically, Mitch McConnell, we might be talking about. Yeah, it looks like they were very unified, which is what the Republican Party needs. Donald Trump knows he needs a unified Congress, Republican Congress behind him. And, you know, it's amazing, first of all, listening to people like Adam Schiff and, you know, Donnie Deutsch and the rest of them. They're sickened. They don't sleep at night because half of America supports this man. You know, we never really talk about the Biden supporters. You know, we just say Joe Biden isn't with it. You know, we just feel badly for him. He should have at least the decency of having a family to let him retire with some dignity. But we never make fun of the people who support him. And that's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. But, you know, they said that Nancy Pelosi said Donald Trump will go to Washington to try to dismantle democracy again. What did he do? He talked policy. He talked about not allowing cuts to Social Security. He talked about a crackdown of the border, reversing Bidenomics, the inflation, the economy problem, making a U-turn on the Biden foreign policy. And we just heard about a 10-year deal that we've got going with Ukraine now. But it is, you know, it looks like they're starting on the right track. Donald Trump didn't once mention, you know, that there was a trial and it was unfair. And before this, he met with the heads of 3 banks. He met with Jamie Dimon and Jane Fraser, Brian Moynihan. And then he met with some of the other big business people. He met with Nelson Peltz. You know, he is doing everything right now, and the Democrats are in disarray because they can't believe that they've got this mess on their hands where they've got the progressives who are calling for the, you know, for the Jewish people to stand up and be identified in New York City on a subway car. And in the end, it sounds like Donald Trump is the one who is reasonable, who's got everything going behind him, and it seems like he's on a path to victory.
All right, Walling.
Here we go.
Do you think the Republican Party is more unified, or do you think the Democratic Party is more unified?
I think they both are. I mean, Donald Trump has this remarkable ability to now bring back people that have criticized him up, down, left, and center, to sit down with Mitch McConnell, who in the days after January 6th laid that completely at Donald Trump's feet, to sit down with other members who voted for his impeachment and bring them together where they're slapping backs and they're singing him happy birthday is extraordinary, I think. My takeaway from that closed-door meeting was the fact that he told Marjorie Taylor Greene to be nice to Speaker Johnson following that failed impeachment effort, and the fact that he's also doubling down on this failed nation rhetoric. We saw that in the press conference. We're going to see over the next 5 months if that actually resonates with the American people. He's really been on this track of taking down and tearing apart America in his speeches. And again, we'll see if that resonates with the American people.
Dana P.
Well, I think, okay, there's 145 days until the election. That's from today.
No one's counting.
And things are never as good or as bad as they seem in politics, but the Republicans had an excellent day today. They got the image that they wanted and the ones that the Democrats really feared, because a united Republican Party is something that they've been banking would never happen. So, for example, they will point to states, and this could be states where you had primaries after Nikki Haley had dropped out. Even 12 weeks after she dropped out, she'd still get up to 20% of the vote. And the Democrats would say, aha, see, that's why he's going to lose. But then you see this, and you have people like Mitch McConnell's won. Mitt Romney went to the lunch, right? He's part of the birthday celebration. And I think that what you could see today is that Republicans can taste victory. And when you start to feel that way, there is a momentum. And you are contrasting tonight videos like this versus the one we're going to show you in the B block. And you could just that's a deep tease. I also think it's very helpful for him to go to the Hill, because having been president before, he knows he's going to need them if he wants to do all of the things that he has, that Janine was talking about in terms of taxes, the border, crime, anything that he wants to do, especially in the Senate. Why does that matter so much? Because that's where your personnel confirmations get done. And you can't get things done in the government if you can't get your people confirmed.
And certainly, your point, Republicans are hopeful about the Senate flipping back. I think they're a little less hopeful about the House.
And great timing, the counter-programming. When all the evening news is going to show Biden in Italy with Zelensky, they're going to show Trump in D.C. with the United Party. Greg, you heard some of these nasty, kind of bonkers statements from the media and the Democrats. How would you figure they're handling this?
It is interesting, like what Judge said. You know, you have Murphy saying it makes him sick to see Republicans backing Trump. Dude, you're backing a mindless invalid who should be in a white room, not the White House. And you'd think the Democrats would have something to point to, like, hey, this is why you want 4 more years of Biden. But you can't. All you have are these fantasies of doom. You can't say what is, so you have to say what if. So I have a theory on why people are supporting Biden. It's a right-wing op. The right has secretly infiltrated the Democratic Party to preserve an incapacitated candidate that is sure to collapse before November 5th. Seriously, because I have other examples, right? You have leftists targeting Jews at home, right? At home, smearing their homes with paint. That could be done by the Mossad. You have activists pushing to target children with gender ideology, hormones, and surgery. That could be done by the religious right, who, you know, after all, they predicted we're coming after your kids. You have progressives defending the influx of illegals by the millions, including criminals. That could have been scripted by Ann Coulter. Now you have a president who is in the throes of dementia. Steve Bannon has to be behind that. So I think that, what does it say about your party when everything you support appears like a right-wing op, that it could actually be manufactured by your adversary? You got to look in the mirror and go, what are we doing when all of this appears to be sabotage, yet we're doing it to ourselves? Oh, that's my theory.
Just blew my mind.
Did I blow your mind? That's not a lot to blow.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.